Just, yeah, now we're recording, make a start. No, thanks everybody for coming. Thanks everybody online. They might still keep dripping in. But those of you that are online now, thank you very, very much. And thanks to everybody who's come. It's nice to have some new faces to the group. I'm sure it's not, I know for yourself, Jen, it's not entirely new about the principles for yourself. But Pat, have you come across the principles before?
Not really.
All right.
Where are we going?
Crash course.
Pat's known me for a long time. She actually trusts you.
She trusts you. That's nice.
Yeah.
We like trust. Everybody online, can you hear us all right? Cool. Hello. WI?
Nice.
Come on in. How are you doing, love? Are you all right? Good. That's a nice bag. There you go. I'll get that off my mother. So, this week's topic, as I think we say most weeks, we spend a lot of time trying to figure out what the hell are we going to have for a topic of conversation, what we're going to have as a title. It's quite a bizarre thing of the principles in a funny kind of way, because it doesn't really mean anything in the words. And trying to find the words to entice people to possibly come along and have a listen and try and get a sense of what's been spoken about. We come up with the challenge of it every single week, don't we? And to this morning, Jen walks in, I'm hiya Lou, and I'm on the internet and I'm going through a thesaurus looking for all these words that I'm thinking, what will people like? This is for a mentorship program we're putting together. What will people like? But there's one word that keeps on coming back over and over again, and it's in our company name, Freedom Thinking, and it's in the title of tonight, Free. You are free. This word freedom, that is one of the main words that keeps on coming to me about what we share and how the experience of when we start to recognize or embody or sink into what we share, when we start to realize it for ourselves, the freedom that does emerge in people's lives. It doesn't take time. It has nothing to do with time. It is something that is already present. And this conversation is around recognizing that freedom. And this freedom isn't something that is conditional. It's not bound by feeling states or thoughts. In fact, it's the freedom to fully embrace life, to recognize it for what it is. And as we start to recognize it for what it is, what it isn't starts to become apparent as well. But the more we recognize it for what it is, the more we realize it's a massive mystery. It's a massive divine mystery. It's a very humbling thing, is this kind of conversation. It can take an ego of somebody who thinks that they know everything, and it can really shake them to the core. And many an ego has taken a beating from coming across a conversation with the principles. But if we really want to start to find freedom, we really start to need to understand how life works. The simplicity of life in its complexity of appearance, the simplicity of its existence. I like doing that. Just stop and look at Joe.
I think this was your title. We had a day where we came up with 4 different titles and the blurb for each of them. But I think both of us recently have been really trying to see what it is that we're sharing. Because I think online there's so many Facebook pages, there's so many books, there's so many courses, there's so much going on, and it's almost coming back to finding your own voice again. And what is it that you've seen? And it can be really easy. I know I've done it myself, to kind of watch a different teacher online share and love what they've said and almost want to be like them and share like them. And I know it doesn't have the same impact when I do that. So it feels like you keep getting more and more comfortable with what you have seen and realising that that's so valuable. And I loved it. I don't mind, hope you don't mind, Mark, but when you just said you had the opportunity to share with someone, and it's like you shared what you'd seen, you shared in the moment with them, and the power of that. Because I think we're very used to going on a course and learning something that we then impart to someone else. But it's almost like you start to see that what you've seen are your qualifications in sharing, like not being able to repeat words or anything like that. But it's what you've seen, it helps other people. And I think it seems like this is the simplest thing to share in so many ways, but then it can also become kind of, you don't know what you're going to say next. And I think that's something that over the years I've got more and more comfortable with, that sometimes Dave will just look at me and I'm like, I had no idea he was going to stop speaking and expect me to say something. But you know something will come. And I think this is the most ordinary conversation in some respects. I think you start to get a respect for the ordinary, a respect for being here and being human. But it definitely, it frees you from the limitations of who you think you are. It frees you from the limitations of what you think is possible. And like we were just saying, the last sort of month or so, we've really been focusing on the business up here, because we've been traveling all over the world over the last 3 years and we've not put much time into it. And so many of the things that I've thought I'm not good at that side of it, I've just been doing. It's like, when did that happen? When did I stop having so much thinking about putting together some writing or some blurb? And I've just done it. And it's like one of those things that there's something that you're learning with the principles that will keep uncovering that limitless potential that's there. And like the limits that you place upon yourself will fall away. And at some point you'll notice they've gone. But you think, how did I not notice that leave? When did it leave? But it's because I think it's more natural for us with its absence. That's really the truest state. And I think that's what I've loved recently, is seeing more and more stuff falling away and less thinking around business, or it's amazing. It just shows up in your life perfect for you. And it's really lovely to have like new people, and like feel like because we've been here, we're actually starting to build a community, and our hope is to really get this known in the north of England, because London's kind of been a hub and there's things happening all the time, but up here it has felt kind of quite sporadic with us. Maybe like we'll go 6 months without doing anything and then suddenly we'll try and get group going again. So we really want to have something regular happening, and run more courses and get more stuff happening. Like we're trying to get into schools at the moment. I know, Jackie, you're interested in the iHeart stuff and getting teachers trained, working with children, and seeing that that's a way of getting into the community. Because from the work that I've seen and filmed out in America, when this goes into communities, like all the things we're kind of seeing on the news at the moment about mental health problems, knife crime, all of those things start to disappear when people wake up to who they really are, or wake up to the health they have within them, or stop being limited by their own thinking. And it feels like it's the most important message to be able to share with people. And that may be you choose to go out and share it and teach it, or it may just be with your family or with your work colleagues, that when you see this for yourself, you show up in the world different. And it's almost like you're spreading it. I remember my first teacher, Roger, used to call it the ripple effect. He just said he felt like within a community, if 20% of the community could get a sense of this, the ripple effect ends up affecting the entire community, and it changes. But that doesn't seem as big as, you know, when I initially came across this, I wanted to change the world. I wanted everyone to know this, but it's almost like one person at a time. Like you seeing it for yourself and living in more peace, it's just as valuable for the world as going out and giving talks. And I think that points to this connection that we all have and that we are all part of, that is beyond anything I can understand. Like we were chatting, we had a cup of tea with Judith and Frank the other day, and I said to her, it was weird, I was looking out the window at a tree I've seen loads of times, the view from Margaret and John's lounge, and I said it was almost like just suddenly being really present with it and not really being a me there to see it. And I was like, afterwards, I said to Julie, I couldn't really speak. I was just like, wow, I wasn't really expecting that. And I feel like these are the sort of moments that start showing up for us when we start to see beyond our intellect that the experience we live in is coming from inside. That's all we can know. And it's all that's ever going to be there. And that the reality we see can change in any moment, given a new thought. We live in a new world. And like, I've always loved when Dave tells his story about when he woke up to this, that he went from being an angry, depressed man to just feeling completely unconditional love and awe. It was like nothing had changed. It had been moments, but suddenly a new reality was born. And you see that for a world to change, it doesn't have to look how we think it does. And often it won't. Because we'll have an idea of our perfect self, our self that's going to be, we've seen the principles and they've recognised thought. And we have this imagined person that we're going to become. But all of those things take us away from being here now with what we are already. And it feels like the meetings, it's funny because there isn't a beginning or an end of what we're talking about. And sometimes we might go back and define what the principles are, and sometimes we don't. And sometimes I'll have a load of thinking about that. But I know that all of the groups that have been shared around the world, there isn't a starting point. It's just being in a room with people and knowing, like, that there's something within them that already knows this, that already is this. And that as our thinking parts, new thought comes to us that's helpful. And that's already been happening throughout our lives. But when we've got eyes for it, or we're more aware of it, we allow it to happen more. And I feel like this evolution and change happens in us in a way that I didn't think was possible before the principles, because I believed through years of therapy and things that, we're limited by our past, or there's certain types of people, certain personalities. And people even say in the principles, oh, but people who've got big intellects. But I've seen people with huge intellects just be blown away by this and see it. And it really is not an age thing, it's not a time thing, it's not what you think you know thing. It's like, if you're ready to hear something, you'll start to hear it. And it won't come from our words, it won't come from the front of the room. It will come from right where you're sat. And that's nice to know, because that goes with you wherever you are. And those words that find you will be what you need to hear. And then you share that. So this isn't any kind of framework or format or teaching or structure. It's not what to do, it's not to do. It's the freedom to recognise what's already here and already exists. And the more that we see that, it seems like my life has got easier, more harmonious, my relationships have improved. My gratitude has gone up. Like, I was someone who, as a teenager, my mum had me trying to do gratitude journals and gratitude affirmations around the house. And I feel grateful for being healthy. And it didn't come with that feeling, whereas now it's like you recognise that feeling isn't dependent on a something. That feeling isn't dependent on the world looking a certain way, or you looking a certain way, or things working out how you think. It's something that emerges because it's true. That we're here, it's a gift that we're alive to experience. And I think it's so easy to get caught up in our stories and who we think we are, and our personalities and our problems and our pasts. And we're almost taught to do that. We're taught to reminisce and different things. But it's starting to see that we are only ever in the moment now. And that we can delve around in our past all we like, and people be free to do that. But I used to think the answers somehow would lay there. I'd find the thing in the past that made me suffer now, or the thing in the past that made me this kind of character. So all of that was limited. Whereas what the principles offer is an opportunity to see that we're not limited by anything. We're not bound by anything. So you get to almost reinvent, try on characters, try on roles in the same way we did as children. And you often use the example of kids playing with a stick, and the stick becomes a sword, and it really is. I use the example of me and my cousins used to become fairies, and we totally were. And when it suddenly be tea time and you get called in, it was the end of this world, this magic world you've been in. But I don't think we realise that we're using that same imagination, that same power to create our lives now. We create so much suffering and so much misery without realizing it. And I think for me, this was just pointing me back inside, recognizing that what I see will come from within me, given how I think. And thought is a limitless power to create. And I've been creating suffering, but I didn't know I didn't have to. And now it feels I've got the freedom to keep creating. And sometimes I create suffering, and sometimes I'm miserable, and sometimes I'm stressed. But more of the time, I think it's almost like you don't take yourself as seriously. I can actually laugh at myself. And that's only really, like, probably even more so since you, because you love to say things that embarrass me or offend people, shock people. But I wasn't able to laugh at myself before because I was so serious about who I am. And it's almost like it feels like you get less and less serious and less thinking you know something and you're a somebody that can be offended. And that to me is freedom. Whereas before I thought freedom was about feeling happy all the time, or, you know, a certain level of understanding, or looking like one of the teachers who I thought had it or got it. It's like, no, it's this. This is what it is. And yeah, I think it's been really great having somebody who will poke at my ego and call me on it, because I didn't realise how serious it's thought that doesn't look like thought. So for someone to like point it out to me, oh, you're talking about yourself again, are you? Blah 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 blah. Like focus shifts away from me and how I'm doing and what I've seen and what I think I know, to where are you? Like, and your love of nature has just brought me right back to the moment. Oh my God, look at that. I'm in the middle of some great insight I think I've had. And it's like, you're missing this incredible view that we're walking around. And I didn't know all of that existed. Like, all of that stuff's always been there, but I've not noticed it. I've not noticed birds or, you know, like.
Saw a barn after that.
Yeah. And like, where have I been? There you go. I'll teach you.
My turn, this shift, and I call it a shift. It's not a shift like this, where you'd take a mug and you'd move it across the table, or you'd shift the car from one place to another. It's not like shifting money from your wallet into a till or shifting seats. This isn't in the world of form. And so to say that, I'm going to try and explain a little bit more what I mean by that for those that perhaps that means nothing to them. When we talk about form, we're talking about the physical matter of life, physical stuff. The stuff we can see, the stuff we sense, the stuff we touch. But we're talking about something that doesn't have a physical structure. It's like the wind analogy. It's like the wind. We've just had Storm Gareth. Storm Gareth. That was Storm Gareth. He was a noisy bugger. He kept me up at night. Storm Gareth. We just had Storm Gareth go through. So we've seen the effects of invisible power. Nobody can see the wind. You can see the bits caught in the wind, getting dragged along, the leaves, the dust, the plastic bags. You get to see the trees being shaken around. You get to see the plants getting blown around. You get to see the birds struggling to fly into the wind and hurtling one way and really struggling to come back. This invisible force that is affecting everything. And if we didn't have understanding of wind, we did not know what it was. Say we had literally just plopped down on this planet and we happened to be looking out of a window, you could quite easily mistaken the plants for dancing. If we didn't understand that the movement of air molecules was the force behind the movement of plants, you could assume that the leaves just get up and move across the floor of the room. That the birds are doing some bizarre ritual, or we'd make a lot of stories up about it. The matter of life is being moved by this force that we call wind. We know them. So we're not confused by it. We don't make up stories about it. We don't look at the bird and think, oh, that's a stupid bird, what's it playing at? We know that the bird is struggling to fly into the wind. And we know that the trees aren't dancing. They're simply being moved by this unseen force. It's obvious. But we too are moved by an unseen force. It's not one that we that we see quite as obviously. It's a constant wind. It's a constant wind of our mind. It's a formless power. It is an energetic state that each and every single one of us is. It is the formless nature of life itself. It's the fact of life. It is exactly what life is. Without the presence of this force in a physical body, there is no life in the body. What is this force that enlivens an organism? The stuff that we call life. Because it's here right now, and we are it. The plant is it. Everything is it. And in it's all the same thing. But us organisms, we've been given a special gift. We've been given this gift to be born onto this planet and to utilize it. This force we call our mind, the power of thought, this conscious thinking state. The stuff we just take for granted every single moment. And sometimes we hate what's going on in our mind and we go to war with our own mind. And sometimes we're so chuffed with what our mind's created, we're like, wow, I'm awesome. Either way. I used to live an awful lot of my life as though I was dropped on this planet, observing out of a window at trees dancing and stupid birds and leaves that could walk around on their own. I assumed that life was created externally and handed to me. Situations created my experience of life. Politics, financial affairs, relationships, traffic, the weather. I assumed that the breakdown of my marriage and my history of prison and violence and aggression, I assumed that's what I was. That's who I was. A type of person. This type of person, that type of person. There were people on this planet who were better than me. And there were people on the planet who were worse than me. Equally as judgmental. But to start to recognize the nature of life is to start to recognize our similarity. Because behind this exceptionally thin veil of thinking is a thinker. Not a type of person, but a dreamer. A conscious thinking state. Behind the stories that we've made up, we've agreed to, we've taken on board, we've believed. Behind the stories of who we think we are, even down to our name, our geographical status and our relationship status and our position within a family, father, son, mother, daughter. This is all stories. These are all things that we tell ourselves. These are all thoughts. Behind all these thoughts is a state. A state that we have very little understanding about en masse. Crystal, could you just turn that off, please? I think it's just a switch just down the side. Real, thanks, lovely. But as people start to wake up to this, the world has to change. Because the world only works as it does at the moment, given the consciousness of humanity. The way that the people that walk around on the face of planet Earth believe life happens. Believe what they think about each other is true. Believe what they think about themselves is a fact. The more you start to delve into this state of consciousness and you actually are prepared to take a look at this state of consciousness, what is actually going on within me right in this very present moment? What the hell is this stuff that is here? The more we start to see the ridiculousness of the stories we've told ourselves over and over again. The more we start to see the ridiculousness of separation that we have created within societies. I often say this, but Jen and I, when we worked in South Africa, seeing the separation in that country, all created from the way people think about one another. It's got nothing else, nothing else. It's a thought. The whole entire problems of South Africa are a thought. And the moment people's thinking changes, so does the world. That's simple. And the moment our thinking changes, our world changes. Because the world that we know doesn't exist out there, it exists within here. The way the world looks is determined by what mood we're in. The world can look like shit. A couple of days ago, I was in a right head fuck. I was just like, this is all shit, blah, 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 blah. I was properly off on one. Everything looks shit.
Because I've got a really clean kayak because of it.
You got a really clean kayak because of it. And when I'm in those frames of mind, everybody's annoying. Everybody pisses me off. The smallest of things, a cupboard, a jar of, I don't know, dried chili flakes falls out of the cupboard and it's the most annoying thing in the planet. And then there's times when I'm in a beautiful mood and people can say horrible things to me and it just bounces off. The world looks beautiful. The trees look beautiful. We find ourselves more present in life. There's one thing that really stands out for me about my anger that I used to experience and the anger that I experienced the other day. I only ever live in that state of anger, or I only ever experience anger when I think that the world or somebody is against me. Or when I think that the world or a situation or an individual is creating an experience and giving it to me. That's the only time I ever experience that feeling of anger, is when I think the world works the way it actually doesn't. When it looks like reality is out there and I am being subjected to it. Relationship breakdowns. Work. All these things look like they have the capacity to hurt us. Well, of course I'm hurting. That happened. That happened, so of course I'm feeling like this. And then people corroborate our stories. Bless you. But that's not what we are. And that's not how life works. It's a very subtle shift. But I often liken the subtlety of it as being that small But when you crack open an atom, you can destroy cities. That's how subtle this is. This subtle shift of recognition that there is no external world that we are subjected to, because there is no external world outside of our mind we can possibly know. We can only know the world, the whiteboard, the people, the computer, the watch, the traffic, weather, the wind, Brexit. Why? Because we have this awareness state. We are this awareness state. And the reason why everybody has totally different opinions about it is because we all think different. So none of us are seeing the same world. Nobody. Brilliant if people saw the world like I did. Not a lot will get done a lot of the time, but you'd all be mad as hell. On a good day, yeah. You'd be sorry. But nobody can. Because reality is not external. It is a state of consciousness that thinks. And whatever it thinks, the feelings and emotion are created. We're talking about the creator. What we are is a creator. Everything thereafter in experience is created. Everything thereafter in experience is created. Feelings, thoughts, ideas, concepts, beliefs, all creation. All an illusion of the true reality. And the true reality being that infinite potential that every single one of us is. What we're not is our ideas of who we think we are. To start to get a sense of this true reality, you start to get a sense that everybody is that. Everything is that. We've learned so much from Rusty, haven't we? The little Jack Russell, God bless that little creature. He's going to go down in history, is that lad. He can be in one seriously foul mood in 1 minute, can't he? And you're trying to dry him. Well, he's got wet and you're trying to dry him and he's going mad. His teeth are out and he's like the angriest looking gerbil you've ever seen in your life. And he's biting the towel and he's ragging it, and then next. He's in a totally different mood. Totally different reality. And Pebble, my mum's dog, you dry him and he just lets you dry him. He loves it, doesn't he? He properly loves it. This separate reality, this internal reality exists for every single living being. It's a mind-blowing thing. Cannot get my head around it. Why does the universe do this? Why does the universe create beings such as ourselves and all the other beings on the planet? I can only come up with the idea that because it's fun. Because it can. And in itself, it gets to experience itself over and over again, get lost in a dream through an infinite amount of beings. So just on one planet, there is birth and death happening right this very moment. It's continuous recycling of this conscious state. We are born, we will die. And as we die, new things are born. But it's all it. Human beings didn't create us. We weren't created by human beings. We're not one of human beings' ideas, and neither is thought, neither is consciousness. Mind is not a human being idea. It's an idea of a far deeper, encompassing force. That is the source of everything we think we know. every single thing humanity has ever come up with has come from this one source, this power of thought. This conscious thinking state. One of my things that I often talk about is, I don't think I've spoken about it too much in this, is
It's like in the music with you.
I know, it's brilliant. It's like some jazz. Can you hear the jazz going on next door? Is like the connection between the natural world. And when you start to get eyes for this, you start to see it's really obvious that everything is connected, because everything's built to interact with itself, one another. So you got insects that pollinate flowers, and the insect benefits, and so does the plant. Yet the plant is completely set up to accept an insect with its little stamen there as it goes to get the nectar. I think it's called the stamen. What's it called? Am I right? And as it goes in, it rushes all over the bee, and the bee comes out and it flies over to the next plant, and it's got its little bit there, and it rushes all this stuff all over it. It pollinates, and the bee takes the nectar and turns it into honey, which it feeds its grubs to rear the next brood. So as the bees are helped along their way, so is the plant through the same circumstance. And then another thing I often talk about is the chlorophyll within a plant, the awareness within a plant cell of sunlight. The sunlight coming from a heavenly body that's 90 million miles away from the face of planet Earth. These things have never met. The sun and the earth have never touched. The plant has awareness of the sun built into it in every single chlorophyll cell. That's how it works. And how plants with thorns, they interact with nervous systems. And the only reason why a thorn actually works is because of the nervous system. A thorn will only work because of a nervous system. Thousands of plant species have come to thorns, but they all rely on a nervous system. Now, plants don't have nervous systems attached to brains as an animal does. Yet there is knowledge of the animal nervous system built into every single thorn. Because without a nervous system, a thorn is totally useless. There is a knowledge that underpins all life. And we are that too. I often talk about the biggest threat that the world faces is a species that thinks it's something other than nature. It doesn't realize it too is an animal. It's part of the natural world. Everything it does is part of the natural world because it's nature in action. Everything we do is nature in action, even down to our wars. It's nature in action. Given the understanding of this organism at the moment, it's creating hell in so many places around the world. And the only way that this hell can start to be reined in is if this animal starts to wake up and think differently, start to recognize what is actually going on here. Because as we start to understand how life works, that there is no external reality, so therefore nothing can create an emotion or feeling or upset us or damage us or hurt us. I'm not talking physically, we can be hurt physically, but even that is recognized by the conscious state. Then the world has to change. And we try and change the world by doing stuff. Throwing money at it and painting it and doing this and doing that. And this has been proven over and over again, hasn't it? With places we've been to, oh, we've introduced this, we've painted, we've cleaned up all the litter, we've given them housing, we've given them money. Within months, it's back to a shithole again. And people have spent all their money. Why? Because the conscious state of the people hasn't changed. We're always looking to change the world by affecting outside. The state of the world outside is created from the state of the world inside for each and every single being. So it's logic. In order for us to change the world, we have to start recognizing how this life works, and we have to realize it's an internal reality. That reality only exists in the mind.
I think also, you always use the example of when we were in South Africa and David literally gone on and on and on about the microplastics and the plastics, and for about an hour. And then at some point I just said, are you still talking about the plastic? And the sun was going down over Table Mountain. It was just a stunning night. And it's not that there wasn't plastic there. It's like, where are you putting your attention? What are you focusing on? And it's like my world and my reality was very different from yours, even though we stood on the same beach looking at the same view. But where was my focus and where was yours? And it's not right and wrong, but it's like, where do you want to live? And I think we're kind of taught to watch the news and feed into negativity, and it's kind of, we know that sells news, like the drama of it all, but where do we want to put our attention? And I think there's a way that you can think about the plastic situation that doesn't make you feel awful and suffer and you live in hell.
And useless.
Yeah, it's like you feel empowered to make different choices. So it's not that you become passive or inactive, but I think you act from a wiser place or a more conscious place. And I think it can seem like some of that stuff needs to change before we can start having a nicer experience or before we can enjoy life. But there are people on this earth who live in situations and places which I cannot imagine living in. The level of violence and crime and corruption, but they're just full of love and compassion and share whatever they've got with you. And you can see that we will keep putting our well-being on a something or it needing to be a certain way, but it's the world changed that moment that you stopped focusing on the plastic and looked at where you were and appreciated the moment as is. And I think we can think of all those things as being bad and wrong, but I have no idea, like the intelligence behind life created all of it. And I don't understand it. And I still love doing this work because it seems as people wake up, they make different choices, and things like all the oceans dying will get less. But I don't know the big picture. Like, I can only see what I see given how I think. But there's an intelligence that knows how to do the plants and the chlorophyll. And even when I was cutting up the salad today and the green in the leaves, I was thinking, we need that. Like, there's stuff in there that we need to survive. So the intelligence knows to create things for us to eat that then allow us to thrive. It's like everything is dependent on each other, and it's intelligent and it's wise. And it can be very easy for us to get caught in our own personal opinions and judgments about things being wrong or right, or it should be like this or it should be like that. And I have many of those and I still do it. But to know that they are all subjective, they're all made up given how we think, otherwise it wouldn't be happening. And I think it allows us to take more of an objective view. And I think I've done more in terms of recycling and reusing and all those kind of things since I stopped being so worried and stressed out by it. And I've done more in terms of helping communities where I used to not be able to watch the news because it upset me so much, and it just, whereas now I've got to go and work in communities where you'd think you could get really depressed and upset because of the poverty levels, but we feel inspired and we've learned a huge amount. Like we always say, whenever we've gone to any of these places, we've learned just as much from the people we're sharing with than they've learned from us, probably more. And you see that it isn't a dependent thing. How we experience life, the reality in the world that we live on, isn't dependent on anything changing external, because we can't know anything external. And I think we're passionate about the work that we do, and you're going to be writing some articles for Wildlife magazine around the nature of our own mind, and that's how we're going to change the environment, mental problems. So we're still being moved to do things, but it's from a much calmer place. So it's, one person living in peace, that's helpful for the planet. Whereas, there's all this terrible stuff going on, and then we're all thinking how terrible it is, we're just adding to that. And we had a great example with my niece when she was walking around Nepal with us, and it was hot and she was tired, and you wanted to look in every single outdoor shop there possibly was. And we stopped at a cafe, and I just said to her, look, it's 12 o'clock.
This is happening.
This is happening. Probably for the next 6 hours, we are going to be walking around Tamil looking at every single shop to make sure we get exactly the right price and exactly the right product. And we went back to the first shop and got them. And I just said to her, so you can either do that absolutely hating it with that face on you, and you're more than welcome to do that, or you could get involved and you could like look around and see if there's anything you want to buy, and you could just see this shift. And she was like, oh. And she went for it, and then she absolutely loved it, and she was bartering. But we don't often get to see that in our own life. Like, you do realise that anything that we experience can look different given we thought, because we hold on to it and we own it, and we think it means something, and
we think it's true and real, don't we?
Or we think it's justified. Like the other day when you're upset, I was saying, but you feel so justified in your negativity and your anger. Like, and the same situation is happening to me also, but I'm going to try and sort it out, but I can't be bothered to feel angry about it. And then there's times when you're like, why are you so upset by that? And so it's not that we're not going to do it, but you get to see it more often. But we're so attached to looking at problems in the world, in ourselves. And I think for me, when I was on the first course, it was weird because there's people there with all kinds of labels, all kinds of issues. And the guy sharing was a man called Dr. Roger Mills, and he just was not interested in stories or labels or issues. He didn't care what you were going through. And he didn't mean it in any disrespectful way, but he knew that there was no power in examining what's been created already. Who you think you are, what you think's wrong with you.
How are you feeling, what you're thinking.
He pointed you back to what you really are, this power to create. Like, stop looking at what you've created and recognize that you're this power to create and then recreate and recreate. You're talking about birth and death. I remember someone saying to me, you do realize that creation and destruction are the same thing. So what we view as destruction sometimes is the creation of something else. And we'll say creation is good and destruction is bad, and we make all of these judgments. But again, like, it's all subjective given how we think. So it's not that, you know, he was being disrespectful of the people in the room and the stories and the things that happened to us. But he knew that there was no need and there was no point in looking there. Because I'd spent 10 years in therapy looking at all of that stuff, looking for the answer, looking for the thing. But it feels totally counterintuitive or opposite of what we think we should be doing, is to not focus on what we think is wrong with us, not focus on what we think our issue is. And I've seen it even, like, I've been moaning a bit about my back today. When I'm not thinking about my back pain, where is it? I'm not experiencing it. So it's not that I might need to do some stretches, I might need to see someone. But when do I experience my back problems the most? Or when I'm thinking about it? When do they completely disappear? When my attention is fully engaged in something else. And you start to see that this attention stuff, this consciousness stuff, is really quite powerful, and that it can shift and change in a moment, so that you can go from living in a world that feels like hell and suffering to one of beauty and joy in a split second. New thought. And back again.
And you don't need to work on yourself. You don't need to do stuff to get there. You're more than welcome to, but it is literally what is already happening. This is happening regardless of whether or not we are aware of it. You know, we can all think back to times in our lives when we have gone through such deep suffering, whether it's been the breakdown of a relationship, whether it's been we've lost somebody. You know, every single person will go through grief. But then somehow we come through it. All the fighting it in the world, trying to figure it all out. It's like that aside, it's like all that trying to get somewhere just creates more of what we actually are trying to get rid of. Why? Because our attention is actually on the thing we want to get rid of. But there's this beautiful thing whereby we are completely not designed to experience all of life. No feeling's ever going to break us. So with that, we go through these traumas, and then without trying, we naturally just come out the other side. We've learned lessons. Very useful lessons in my case. I am so thankful for all the shit I went through in my life. So thankful for it, because I have learned so much. that helps me to this day. We have this ability to learn, this beautiful gift called insight, this ability to have brand new thought come. We were speaking yesterday, you said, oh, thoughts just dropped into my mind. I love the way you said that, like a little drip just popped in. And I love the way that you said that. It's like it's just dropped into my mind. This is what we have this gift of unlimited thought. A gift of an infinite, this is the most beautiful gift you can possibly comprehend. We have this gift of unlimited thought. It's unlimited. We can think anything. We can think ourselves into utter despair. And we can think ourselves into beauty and joy. Then people start to think, so what you're talking about is positive thinking. Why don't you say this right at the beginning? But we're not. We're not talking about positive thinking. Some of the hardest people I find to be around are positive thinkers. I've got to be positive. Got to be positive. It's like, I'm not feeling very positive today, but I've got to be positive. I'll be positive. I'll be positive. It's like, no. There's a deeper point. And when you can start to recognize that thought is all the same thing. A thought of suicide is built of the same stuff as a thought of look at that flower. It's like sandcastles. They're all made out of sand, but they all look different. They're all made out of sand. This power of thought creates illusions within our mind that look real. Creates feelings that feel as though what is happening externally are created from the situation. Creates that illusion. Creates the illusion that we get to walk around in life and create reality. It's this is an absolute gift. When we don't understand it, we create hell over and over again, time and time again. But as we start to recognize what's going on, you can even go through hell with understanding. This has been it's not that people will stop thinking. When you start to recognize this within yourself, you will not always live in a state of perpetual joy. This is not what life is about. But you will get to experience all feelings, as you always have. But with understanding. And this understanding, one of my favourite things that I think it was Dr. Bill Pettit said, his wife asked Sydney Banks, Sid, is love all that's needed to change the world? And Sydney Banks sat back. Sydney Banks, for those that don't know, is the man who realised the 3 principles or started to articulate them, which we still haven't mentioned, but never mind. But Sid turned around and said, love and understanding are enough to change the world. People can still do very destructive things out of love. People can really confuse love for fear and fear for love. But when people start to wake up, and I call it a waking up, because we will go from this dream state of life. You're laughing at the music. Are you laughing at us? We've got this jazz or something going on next door. Ed's playing the violin.
You think this thing,
yeah, we ordered this one especially. They can stop now. But it is.
I've got a picture of a music box with a doll. It's not your fault.
Let's have a break. It's all right. Right, we're going to have 10 minutes. So, is everybody in the UK? Everybody's in the UK. Cool. So we'll be back at about 10 past.
It'd still be 10 past.
Oh yeah, keep forgetting.
Let me laugh before.
Unless it's Nepal.
Sometimes I'm going to be in a really bad mood. Sometimes I'm going to be in a beautiful mood. Like, the world's beautiful, the birds are beautiful, and you point at Jen and went, the trees are beautiful. Jen's like expecting a compliment. Like, yeah, the trees are.
The thing is, I spend my life with Dave going, I told you how much I love my new watch. I told you how much I love my leather.
My kayak. But 10. But this. Right, you lot. Go and grab a break.
Yeah.
safe. You can actually bring it and it's nice to drive away. And the safest thing on the road.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everyone. My sister isn't here today, so my sister's usually the one that keeps talking all the way through. Families. I like my sister. Done well. She's in Nepal.
It's quite an asset.
She roughing it.
Not yet.
She's been staying with our
Certainly not yet.
Really not.
Pocahontas.
Pocahontas.
All right.
Oh, by the way, how's Dave? Is the Dave? The cockroach. Have you heard how the cockroach?
No, we haven't heard of Dave the Cockroaches, no. No.
See you, Dave.
Yeah. Can I ask Crystal to tell you how the other day I was talking on the phone, how you described that thought? You said that crap is the best thing.
You can let the thought come in through the front door, and let it go out the back door. But if it's a good thought, if it isn't a great thought, just don't serve it tea.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, some really crappy thoughts drink a lot of tea in my mind. I'll tell you. They get a lot of mugs of tea. Has anybody got any questions? And these questions can be about anything. There's no silly questions.
When's Brexit going to end?
Oh,
It's not.
yeah, I don't think it is. No.
Just don't watch telly, there you go.
No.
Don't.
No,
I don't watch any news channel, radio, not like that, you be honest.
I haven't watched anything about Brexit for ages for that reason.
Yeah, it's just bullshit.
That was in my mother's care room down on big screen. And after 5 minutes, he's like, don't upset the other lady. It doesn't take much.
Brexit. God bless us all. Yes, you may.
I mean, I heard you say about, and I really can appreciate that we do create through thought. I mean, I really get that. I've had experience of that myself, how my physical state has changed through what I'm thinking. I think I also struggle with a bit of, I mean, are you saying that everything, like the reality that we see here, because I know there's like, you know, you probably hate people doing this, but like Buddhists go, oh, this is all an illusion. And there's a part of me that can sort of get that in terms of a bigger picture. I mean, like Jenny said, I also feel that there is a bigger picture of which we're only seeing a slice in all our reality on the earth, and we don't know what the bigger picture is. But it feels to me quite harsh to say, oh, this is just an illusion, when as human beings we're really living in this what appears to be a reality, and we have to negotiate this reality, you know, which appears solid and often harsh. So, no, that's right. So I'm interested in what the three principles feels about the external reality. I mean, I get that how we respond to it affects our reality, but I mean, do you feel that there isn't an actual reality, or that there is a physical reality, and it's how we respond, how we think about it, that is the difference between what we experience and what we don't of this reality?
That's an awesome question.
Did everyone online hear the question?
Did you hear the question online? Cool.
I think no. Did you say no?
Turn your volume up, you two.
Sorry, no, we didn't. I couldn't quite hear it fully. I don't know if it's our end.
Kim and Sandy heard it. That will do.
You're going to repeat.
Right. So I think effectively the question was, I'm going to try and simplify it. We live in a world of form. Are we going to negate this? And we're talking about this is an illusion. So are we basically going to downplay the world? Is that basically summed up?
Well, it's a funny question in that at the moment there seems to be a lot online about three principles versus non-duality and the three principles, and there's a lot of discussion and there's a lot of debate. I would say that Sid was a non-dual teacher because he really pointed to oneness, so I don't see it in any way as a conflict. Non-duality.
Yeah, what did you say?
Oh, Sydney Banks.
Oh, Sydney
I would
Banks,
say
right.
would have been a non-dual teacher. He wouldn't have known that as a term then. But he pointed to oneness. The three principles, he said, were a metaphor. There were three words to describe one happening that we can't put into words. And I've kind of watched these big debates happening, and you're telling me that if you saw somebody in the street attacking someone, you wouldn't help them because you'd realise it was an illusion. And like, there's all of this kind of intellectual discussion and back and forth and debate happening. I think from my own experience, I can see that the reality that I see changes, so it can't be true reality. I know that I experience a physical world, and it seems like I live in one, and I don't kind of negate that, but I can also see the power in pointing people away from the physical world and what we think is creation and what we think is important to the source that can't be touched or harmed. And I feel like we then get to be in the world in a very different way. So I don't think we belittle it. I feel like we get to fully embrace it in all of its colours and all of its experiences and feelings. But I think there's a deeper respect for the power of consciousness that can't be touched or changed or impacted or damaged. And I think when we look at the form, there can be damage, there can be pain, there can be suffering, and we spend a lot of time looking there. And I think most teachers are saying, look within, look before, look to formless. And all of these are like metaphors trying to describe. As soon as we open our eyes, we see a duality. And it's in the duality of life that we suffer. And so it's hard for our identity. It's hard for our identity to kind of, but this is so important. But then we know that there's been things that have seemed like everything to us, and then we can look at now and it seems completely different. So I think you see that it isn't losing respect for. I think you gain a greater respect for what's created, but you know it's a creation. And I would say that my friendships, my relationships, my life seems very, very real, and it's very interactive, and it's, you know, Sydney Banks would often say it's a contact sport. This stuff's going to happen. But to know that there's that place within us that can't be touched or affected or broken, it can only be in our mind through thought that we can feel broken or disconnected. Or so you start to see that there's no point in looking at duality and thinking, yeah, but this is really important. We've got the spiritual part of us, and then we've got the human part, and we kind of think there's something different. But seeing that it's spirit playing out, and it creates all. And I think when you often talk, you know, this chair came from thought. Someone had to think it into life, had to think it into, then get the materials and work out how to do it. So everything's created from these principles. And I know that I live in a very real, fixed world. I get in the car to drive places. I don't just imagine myself to get there. But I don't think it's a thought of thing we're going to ever intellectually understand oneness, because there will always be an us looking or trying to understand. I think I said it last week. Someone once said to me, so who is this trying to see what? I was like, what? And he goes, once it's seen, there's no one to see it. just sat there kind of looking at him. But I started to get a sense that as soon as we try and understand one energy, one God, one mind, creating all, we're in the duality of life. But it's almost like I think you can see that what is created changes. That can't be truth. And I think that's what the principles point to. But they don't have a feeling or an opinion or a suggestion about any of it. But I think they're not different from the non-dual teaching or what Buddhism was pointing to. But I do feel there seems to be a real respect built into the teaching in the way that Sid spoke, that he'd very much talk about us here as human beings having an experience, and he totally respected that, and then he would just go off and speak beyond anything you can understand with your intellect, and just like, so you could see that he said that it's almost like speaking from two worlds. He said, but there really isn't two worlds, but we'll never be able to understand with our intellect, if that makes sense.
I do think it's a really beautiful question, and it's like, in this world of form, well, what is this? I love quantum physics, and I don't claim to understand it, but I'm fascinated by it. And one of the 1920s, I think it was 1920s experiment, was called a double slit experiment. Has anybody heard of it? Mm-hmm. Whereby electrons, was it electrons? Were fired from an electron gun at a piece of plastic metal or something with two slits in it, and behind it was a receiver that could read electrons. And what they did was they fired electrons bang in the middle. I'm going to have to draw it, I think. Can you see? Yeah. So they got this electron gun. Doesn't look anything like a gun, but for argument's sake. And then it had this and the aim was there. And then it had this receiver behind that could read when these electrons were fired. It could receive them. It recognized when they hit the back wall. And what they recognized with this double slit experiment was that when people watched this experiment, the electron behaved like a particle. It took on like a form. And this particle behaved in the everyday world way that we would expect it to. It literally just made two slits. As one of them went through, it made the impression of two slits on the back. It behaved like what we'd expect it to. I think I might have mistakenly said that who aimed at the middle. I can't remember now, so you have to forgive me. But what they recognized that when somebody wasn't watching it was that it didn't behave like a particle, it behaved like a wave. Now a wave is infinite potential. So in the back, it had this wave reading when somebody wasn't watching it. So what they were saying was, we are literally creating, consciousness literally creates the world that we see. The observational fact of consciousness, this awareness state, is literally creating the world in front of our eyes. Now, I don't in a million years ever claim to know anything about that, but just that simple experiment gets you thinking.
Because we affect it. We were, by looking at it, observing it, we were affecting it.
That's right.
Yeah.
So,
with everything.
Yeah.
Just really.
So it's like, it makes no sense to our intellect.
So what do you know then?
This is right. It makes no sense to the intellect, but it's with the intellect that we try and figure all this stuff out, because it's the sledgehammer that we use to try and crack every nut. And this isn't a situation whereby we would expect people to then go, right, well, look into that and do this and do that. But we would just ask people to open up their minds to new possibilities. And to me, I mean, this cup, mug, Essex from Essex, mug. See, I'm only doing that because they take the piss out of me every single time.
Well,
I say
it's not
a mug. Getting my own back now, I'm in the north. I've had weeks of it. But I mean, just on a really simple level, it's a case of my reality is however I think about the mug. The reality that I live in, the experience of life that I will see will be whatever I think this mug is. If I think it's a useful size, I mean, I'm quite happy with that. It's a good size. I can get my 2 fat fingers through it. It's quite comfortable to hold, but to the next person, it could be, right, it's a bit big. You know, I use a lot of fingers to get a bit stuck now. Got to put a lot of fingers through that. I don't like as much liquid in my cup, or I don't like the colour.
Something that occurred to me which is interesting because about like navigating the world, this real world out here, like touching it, bearing in mind this is form, which is the colour. So then where are we? Which isn't, the difference isn't our bodies in the world, our bodies are part of the physical world.
Well, this isn't solid.
And I'm not saying like there's no answer to
Yeah.
that. I'm just saying that that gives you a different perspective on where am I actually looking at, what's left when I take all of that form away. So you can't say, is that real or an illusion, and I'm real. You've actually got to say, is all of this and that an illusion? And then it's what's left. But it's a different starting point. Which is interesting. It opens up a different way of thinking about and takes you back to
It's
alive.
We're just trying to point to something very simple. You know, all that sounds very, very complicated stuff, the double slit experiment and all that. But we cannot know the world outside of consciousness. We cannot even know we're in this room without the awareness of consciousness. We cannot know our partners, our family, mother, father, friends, outside of consciousness, and however they appear to us is a thought-created experience of them, which is why I see my mother one way and my father sees her another way. Thank God. You know, but mum's the same person. But even down to the people that we see, they're still creations of our own mind, how they look, think, and feel according to how we see them. So we're just pointing to something really simple, that what we call reality, when we talk about reality, we instantly look here. Oh, this is reality. That stuff there. Is it the reality that we experience? No, it isn't. The reality that we experience is one within. It is this awareness of the blackboard, the whiteboard, time, one another, the weather. And this is all a creation of the formless. It creates, even down to the fact that we can see the whiteboard, see us, see one another, is a creation within. Because the eyes don't see that image, the eyes simply take in light. So all the eyes do, take in light, take in light, take in light. And the image that we see, sight is an experience. It is one that is completely within. It looks like we're sitting, I often say this with the kids. I first said it in Nepal with the kids, where do you see me? They're like, you're over there. No, you don't, you see me within. Where do you hear me? Oh, I hear you over there. No, sound too is an experience. It helps create the reality that we see, and that only comes about because of our physiology with the eardrum. So between vocal cords and an eardrum, there is no sound. There's just the movement of air molecules in waves. Sound is the experience that we live in, and we don't question, and we just assume that sound is all around us. But sound is an experience created within. The entirety of the reality we see outside is completely and utterly created within. There is no outside we can ever know. You can never know the cup. You can only ever know whatever is being created within our mind about the cup, about one another, about wealth. How much money is wealth? At what point do you become wealthy? These are all subjective, and you start to recognize that the reality that we actually live in is subjective by nature. It's all subjective. If it wasn't subjective, everybody would see the same reality. Is that right?
Wow. That's awesome. Trippy.
Oh, in Africa, isn't it?
So there was something about Captain Cook where the natives couldn't see the ship at first because they'd never seen something. They didn't see it. It's only until someone they came across, and then as soon as one saw it and described it, then they all saw it.
I wonder if the stuff that we're not seeing
Yeah, 'cause
right
we
now,
don't
there's
know
something
what
in the middle of the
it
room, and you're
Yeah.
gonna go and trip over it.
You know,
Yeah.
we can.
This was on QA, where the hawk can see the urine of little animals, and that's the only definition of UV. So you might not trip over it because your urine is very big, but nevertheless, it's there, you can see it.
Yeah.
I was just thinking as you were talking about this other impression in my head of different animals have different senses. We have 5 senses, 5 human senses. And so we could, we should or would or ought, but this idea that there might be some sort of the waves through the air and we pick them up through our eyes, through our ears. And it's interesting that a different animal with a completely different set of senses, like different eyes, you know,
It's the wavelengths, isn't it? The wavelengths of
take
light.
in something else.
We only pick a small part.
We pick a tiny bit of
When you see all these wildlife guys, they've got infrared and then they've got all these other starlight cameras. That's broadening the scope of what is actually there, but we can't physically see it with our eyes. We're not able to.
So other animals have different realities from that point of view. But on top of that, they also know that the images that go into our eyes, our brain still works out, like we just said, about shit. You know, what you see. It's not like what you go through your eyes is what you get. That's absolutely been proved to be nonsense. You know, it's incredibly selective, and it's your brain that
Fills in the blanks,
selects
that's optical
what
illusions
you
for
see.
them, isn't it?
And you can see things that are not there. But, you know what I mean? So in other words, there is an awful lot going on, like you just said, once stuff is.
Yeah.
It's quite amazing as well that we can be in bed at night in a quiet room and dream up all kinds of things. Like you start to see, where is this reality we live? And it's true and it's real. And I've visited places which I don't remember seeing. I remember someone saying to me that they'd worked with someone who'd been blind since birth, and they asked them what did they see. They see images, they see all kinds of things. So it's almost like we put so much focus on looking out, and I think every religion and philosophy and teaching is going, look within, and then we like look within our physiology, and we don't know what it means, but look within something true and constant. And I think we get an experience of it. I don't think I can't intellectually know any of this stuff. It just doesn't make sense to the form. But you can start to intuit it a bit more, and you start getting fascinated and interested. And like Dave was saying earlier, like as soon as you think you know something, you almost like stop looking. You stop. Like I think I said it last week or the week before. I knew that David had the car keys last. I didn't bother giving it too much. Thought Dave had them last. Dave had them last. That's what happened. And then we couldn't find them. So then I was like, okay, think again. What? And then Dave came back upstairs and was like, you had them last because you got the stuff out the boot. And then suddenly my mind opened. I was like, oh yeah, and I was wearing that coat. And then so you start to see, as soon as you think you know something, you close off to all other possibilities. And I think that's the thing with the principles. It's almost like you keep realizing we don't know anything.
We don't know.
And then you open again and again and again. And then you'll get completely lost in thinking something to be true. And then it'll be seen for what it is again, another ego or another identity or another thought that didn't look like thought. And that's just what we do. But I think it is nice to know that it's natural and everyone does it. And
to play.
And to know that there is, you know, we're talking to Judith about this the other day, there's people that experience all kinds of things like clairvoyance and clairaudience and all these different things. And I used to have a big opinion about it all. Now I've got no idea. It seems to be possible because there's people that do it and they know stuff that they shouldn't really know. So it's like we see that what we think is reality and what we think is possible for us. I think, like you've often said, we're scratching the surface of this power that is life. And you can see it within technology, how we've moved forward with technology. We've now got these.
You don't even see that as a miracle.
No, because like we have this device that you're on the internet and you're, you know, having video call. We've got people from, I think, all over the UK today, and often we have people from all over the world online joining in this meeting. That is a miracle in itself. That didn't exist, and then it came into form through thought. And I think you start to see the everyday miracles and the everyday kind of magic in it all. And some of those things that we really want to know, it's almost like when they're off our mind, we expand again and we know, I think we know something else. We know something else. And you often will use the same metaphor when we're working with people. So I might hear it 2 or 3 times a week. But there'll be times when I hear it and wow, why didn't you say it like that before? It's like, I've been saying it like that all week. But so you realise where the learning comes from. It's not.
It's you, not the teacher, isn't it?
Mm,
So
that's
you
right.
receive that message, isn't it? Then,
That's right.
Yeah, how you frame the mind was.
It's even down to, there is nothing outside of our consciousness. You cannot know anybody outside of consciousness. To know that they are there is consciousness. To have an idea of somebody, something about somebody, is consciousness at play. This is all within. This is why Buddhists and Hindus have said for millennia, you want to know the answer, you've got to look within. Stop looking out there for answers, because the answers are not out there. The answers have always been within. What is this life stuff? How does it work? What are the implications of starting to see it? Well, when you start to recognize that reality is within, then we stop trying to sort out the world to try and make ourselves feel better. We don't need people to be nice to us in order for us to be all right. We're all right. It's only what we think about that person not being nice to us that's creating the impression that we're not all right, creating those feeling states. When we talk about this stuff, we're talking about, feeling and thought are 2 sides of the same coin. You can't have one. You cannot have feeling without thought. But we live our life as though feelings are kind of this information about something, as though that's totally separate to what's going on within consciousness. But the moment our consciousness shifts, the whole situation looks different and we feel different about it. It's funny that. Yeah, I just wanted to read out Kim's first. Kim said, in our domestic abuse programs, we point to the illusion that we all self-create stories and believe which keep us there. So getting smacked in the face is not an illusion, but the illusion of happen ever after, and the imaginary beliefs that keep us within the illusion, in that our ladies find their freedom. Kim, do you want to just come online, love, and just explain a bit about that? Because I think I'm not reading that very well.
Oh, you have to press the unmute button. Right, so we do domestic abuse programs, and when we're pointing to the illusion, we're pointing to the illusion of how we create a story that then keeps us within that relationship. So as the ladies move through of understanding that actually there's a bigger illusion going on, that we're all doing it about different things. And my own personal history was that I'd created the white picket fence inside my mind, which created me staying in there. So they get to see how that illusion is created, and then so much stuff falls away, like not being good enough and all these other things that happen within the group. So, when somebody's saying, well, that behaviour is showing up in that way, when they see that they're not responsible for that behaviour, that is coming from the inside and a separate reality of that person's story and how they've created an illusion of how they see the world, it kind of really sort of starts to show up in the ladies that they don't feel so responsible for anyone else's happiness or unhappiness or stuff. So that's how we kind of point to it. So yeah, I hope that makes a bit of sense.
Thanks, Kim, love. Some beautiful points there. Some beautiful points there. Thanks, Kim, love.
You're welcome.
That is really one of the big things, that things fall off our to-do list, don't they?
Yeah.
It's like things fall off our to-do list. It's like, oh, I need to keep them happy. I need to juggle this. I need to monitor. We were just speaking just before, and you mentioned about how you're not worrying about what's going on with all those people anymore.
I only realised it when Jenny was talking on the first half when you did the talk then. I don't know if that's your alcohol moment, but it was a realisation to me, because it meant a lot to me. Before I went to see Jenny and Dave, I had a lot of things going on from the past, which I'd sort of I thought I'd let go of everything. But what I realised, well, before I come to you, I was almost running my life through watching my son and what are they doing, and is the child all right? And we've gone on the motor, oh my God, and it was like this. And it's like stressed out for no reason. And when you said before that you don't realise there's something you'd let go of and you didn't know when you actually let go of it. Well, I've only just realised I don't even think about them anymore. My son's glad, probably. But you know, it's silly because that's not my life, it's their life. But you gave me that realisation in that talk. So thank you very much. Only I don't know when I stop doing it. I don't mention him now. We just see him on the Thursday usually. But yeah, so it's really good to know that, and thanks for your help with that. It has really, it's done it.
Do you know what? We love this because people come to us with all sorts of problems, and it's like there's only one problem, and it's that human beings believe that the reality that they see is real and true. The way they see the world is the fact. The way I see the world is right. We crossed a farmer's field the other day, didn't we, Dave? And oh, lad, bless him, God bless this old lad. He stood there like that. And as far as I'm concerned, we climbed over a stile and we walked down a path across this field. And he went, that bloody grass is my livelihood. It's where we make our money, he's going, wasn't he? And he says, why do you not stick to path? I said, sorry, man, I didn't really know I hadn't. He said, bloody path goes right round the edge of the field. So he's going, these bloody hell, chumping around. And I just said to him, I said, oh, look, man, sorry, man, look, I'm sorry for upsetting you. I held my hand out to shake his hand. But I just said something like, bless you, man. Bless you, man, I don't want any argument or anything like that. And he went, there's nothing to argue about, I'm right. And it was like, you could see the reason for this man's utter disdain and this painful look on his face, couldn't you? It was like, I'm right. The way I see the world is real and true and a fact. And we can all do that. I'm right. I'm right, but I'm right. No, we're right according to how it looks to us in this moment, but that's not a fact. You know, you've got the other people who are four people who happen to, us four, who happen to not know where the footpath was, who also thought they were perfectly right in walking across the field. But you just see the made up nature of our reality, ours. And how quick and easy it is for us to buy into it. Now, if we have got no awareness that we are living in this conscious thinking state and this is what our reality is, we will instantly blame the world for how we feel about things. And we will instantly blame people for their shortcomings and all the terrible things that are. We'll blame finance, we'll blame the weather for how we feel, we'll blame work, we'll find excuses. These are all excuses. But they're innocent excuses, aren't they? Created of misunderstanding.
But then we blame our happiness on things.
And then we blame our happiness.
It's not just the negative things, we blame our happiness, we blame our insights.
All these
they
conditions.
come from within us, but we're like, oh, but was listening to that person, or I was reading that, and it's so easy to.
You gave me that?
Yeah, but it's like it came from within you, but it's so easy and it's so quick, and we do it all the time. But it's nice to know that it's all of it. It's not just the bad stuff.
No, absolutely.
The truth stuff. But from the nibble of this, isn't it incredible how when you hear the truth, like, you recognise it, and how can you recognise it if it's not within you? How would you recognise it?
Absolutely.
It's almost like you knew it, but you forgot it. So when you hear it, it's like you're reminded of it, isn't it? Sort of, almost.
Yeah, I think that's it, Dave. It's like this isn't a shock to a lot of people, as much as it is, but it also isn't. It's like when they recognise it, it's like, holy shit! Why? There's books written called "Why Did Somebody Should Have Told Us." Like somebody should have told us. This is so obvious. This is why the world is everybody's. This is why everybody likes different things. This is why people play different sports, and they're all attracted to different people, and this is why people do different jobs. This is why people aspire to be different things, and it's why.
You don't choose.
But it explains why everybody's different. And yeah, and then the moment you gain that, it's like you can start to find acceptance. And Jen and I occasionally go to the Buddhist temple in Manjushri, don't we, in Ulverston, and I remember speaking to this Buddhist man sitting at the front giving this speech about acceptance, and he said, the moment acceptance is found, healing begins. It's so true, it's so obvious, it's so logical. But none of this exists outside of our stories, our mind. Acceptance too is a story. It's a thought-created experience. I just want to read Lee. Sometimes I have moments when I get lost in thoughts and absolutely lose the plot. Even though I know what is happening, I still can't pull myself out of the moment and thinking as quick as would like. You read.
Lose the plot. Even though I know what is happening, I still can't pull myself out of the moment and thinking as quick as would like, and I feel like I lose control in the moment, and it frustrates the hell out of me and causes more problems and issues. Anyone in the room relate to that?
Well, that doesn't happen to me.
I think that's the nice thing, like when you start talking in this kind of conversation, people will share things like that and they seem so big to us, and we forget that we'll all experience that, and it might look different to another person, them getting totally lost in thought that doesn't look like thought and acting out of it. But anger and rage are kind of the really loud ones, and they're the ones we kind of go to war with. But I can equally do it over something where I'm just so lost in thought I can't see anything outside of it. Like, we do that. But I think to know that we don't do it on purpose. If we could do different, we would. I think with this understanding, it seems that we get lost for less time. We come out of it quicker. We learn to apologise more. Sometimes we catch ourselves in the middle of it, and you start to see that it's a human condition. It's not like us doing life wrong. It's not personal. But for all of us, we'll all have things that we just get totally lost in. It does not look like it has anything to do with our thinking. It looks like the situation. And then we wake up.
Physiological, isn't it? Sometimes it's your body that actually, your thinking can't do that.
What do you mean?
Yeah, well, I work with children. A lot of children have experienced trauma, and so they will just go trigger into a place of physiological response, be it depression or whatever, and adults as well. So I just think you can know, but you physically are responding.
So when you say physically responding in anger, are you seeing a separation between the creation of anger and thought? When you say kids go into this physiological reaction of anger, are you seeing a separation between anger and thought and behaviour?
Yeah, because the frontal cortex, they're gone. The thinking's gone.
That's the physiological thing. It's
Yeah,
the
so
red
we-
rage thing, isn't it?
Yeah, so we're the kind of regulate them physically.
Right, I think that
Yeah,
sounds.
fight or flight.
I think that sounds. I'd like people to just consider something with this. For example, I was told that it was my physiology that created my depression. It was my physiology that created anger. I was told that I had chemical imbalances in my brain. This is why I've suffered from depression. This is why I suffer from anger. Something I've heard many people told. Now, nobody asked me at that time when they took these blood samples and they came back, you're full of adrenaline and cortisol day. This is the reason why you're always angry. This is the reason why you're always depressed. You've got all these chemicals. Nobody once asked me, Dave, what the hell have you been thinking about a lot lately? We assume that the chemical is the creator of thought, a formless power. We're 180 degrees in the wrong direction. Thought tells the body what to do. Consciousness, without consciousness, the heart ceases to beat. The brain has no functionality whatsoever without consciousness. We call it death. And we had a conversation with a friend of mine who was talking about the problem that people face is that they've created these neurological pathways. Okay, cool. This is the problem that people face. They create these neurological pathways. How are these neurological pathways created? And why is it that they can change? There has to be an energy exchange. In order to move this cup from there to there, it takes energy. In order to move a leaf across the ground, it takes energy. What is it that changes the neurological pathways? Again, we would look at the brain and assume that the form is creating the formless. But that's not the way that this universe works. The formless creates the form. So for all the time we're spending looking at our physiology, we are negating the fact of thought. Nobody can experience anger without first thinking angry thoughts. People can be very quick to anger. I can find myself very, very quick to anger. But it never comes from anything other than thought. I first have to have a thought, whether it's visible to my conscious ego or not. I first have to have a thought, which then, that thought then tells the body what to do. Get the hell out of there. How would we ever fight or flight without a thought? First, to recognize the problem. This stuff that we're talking about is such an important conversation because for years we have studied the form of mankind, thinking that the answers to all the mental health problems lay in the brain, in chemical imbalances. But the beauty about this is when people start to wake up and realize it's all thought, the moment our thinking changes, we calm down. The moment our thinking changes, we can find ourselves back in a state of peace. Nothing in the world's changed. In fact, people can still do the same thing that we say triggers us, but we're all right. We've continuously looked at the world of form for the reason why people behave like they do and why they feel like they do. But the entirety of the form is created from the formless. Every single feeling, every single thought is created from this formless power. This is why it's vital to start to recognize this, because it simply makes sense of life. The problem is we can't study it underneath the microscope. We can study the after effects. We can study the neurological pathways. My neurological pathways were so entrenched in depression and anger. Yet in one moment of insight, What is insight? It's a revelation, a new realization of thought. The moment that happened, if my neurological pathways were what I was stuck with, then I would never have changed in that moment. And I would still be a suicidal, depressed man.
I'm interested in the school program. We've had a lot of kids with behavioural problems and ADHD, and it's been interesting over the 10-week program seeing them get more and more still, like the ones that couldn't sit.
Take care of you too.
Couldn't sit still and will fidget with everything and just be all over the place, and it's because they've got ADHD. And it's like we've just been teaching them about their nature and about where experience comes from, where their feelings come from, and they've completely settled down and got less fidgety, and a lot of the behavioural problems in that year group have started to get less. Whereas some of the kids, he said, it was more than one child just punching and kicking and hitting at break times. He said, but it's getting less because when you start to make thought visible to people, we start to notice it more. But we live so unconsciously and live out of thought that doesn't look like thought. And I think to know that it's almost like there's one place to look. It's always going to be coming from the power of the mind, the power of thought. It's consciousness, whatever we want to call it. That's where it will be coming from, and everything else will be an after effect. But it was just really nice to know that even with these children who they're like, well, I'm not sure these ones are going to be able to sit still long enough to even listen. But like it's been going in, and like you can have just a normal conversation with him now. He's chatting to you rather than being like this all the time. And you see that whatever it is that was agitating him is still coming from thought. And to know that we're not what we think, and that power, that consciousness that can shift, changes the form. And we can see it again, like when we feel anxious and nervous, we start to feel it in our body. When we feel relaxed and calm, we feel that in our body. Like they're not two separate things. And to see that thought is what, with the way that we describe thought, would be what's beating the heart, powering the body, moving my arm. I'm not having a thought to move my arm, but you start to see it's so much bigger than what we think thought is, which is why we don't recognise it as thought. It's just, you know.
We've limited thought down to conscious words, sounds, and experiences that we are conscious of. But the fact that I am moving my hand like this without any conscious thought, but yet it still takes thought to move my hand. It takes thought to balance. This thought stuff is the formless nature of everything. It literally powers our physiology. There is no separation. It can be, thought is, the reason why we talk about this is because we're trying to shine light on something that already exists. But we're blind to it because we've literally been born into it. We've never questioned it. It's just how life works. One of the beautiful things that we do see is, I was seen as broken by my therapists and by psychiatrists, and I was told I would have depression for the rest of my life because it's a condition, it's an illness. Now, when people saw that in me, and I trusted these people because they were experts, they didn't see my mental health because they didn't know it existed. And I remember speaking to a psychiatrist, and a couple of people heard me say this, but speaking to a psychiatrist and bringing him up and saying, look, I've started this community group. I used to work in Manor House with this community group at the beginning. And I get people with, I've got PTSD, I've got bipolar, I've got this, borderline personality disorder, I've got OCD, all these labels. And I remember ringing up this psychiatrist because I thought, if I can start to understand the label, then perhaps I can understand how to communicate with these people. And I rung up this psychiatrist and I said, look, mate, I said, you have to forgive me, my name's Dave. I said, I'm not a psychologist or anything like that, but I'm helping people. And I'd like to know about labels, psychological labels. And he said, okay, Dave, I'll help you as best I can. I said, thank you. And I rung a psychiatrist because they're top of the tree. These are the top people in our society, paid the most qualified. And I spoke to this man and I said, look, I said, I want to know how they came to the conclusion of a label. I said, so when I was at college and we used to do an experiment, I said, I used to have a control next to the experiment to check its accuracy. said, what was the control next to the experiment to check the accuracy of the label? And he said, and I always say this rightfully so, he said, sorry Dave, I don't really understand what you mean. It's like, no, I don't blame you, because it was a bit of a crap example, but I was struggling for words. And I said, well, did you kind of look at somebody and go, they're all right, they function well in the world, so anybody who isn't like that, there's something wrong with them? And he was like, sorry Dave, I still don't really understand what you mean. I was like, fair enough. I said, you obviously have a line for mental health, for mental illness. I said, what is your line for mental health? And this phone went silent. And after a few seconds, he just came back with these exact words. He said, Dave, it seems to me like my industry owes everybody a massive apology. He said, because we never work with mental health, we only ever work with mental illness. I said, okay. At what point would you ever diagnose somebody as mentally healthy? We wouldn't. Right, now we've got a fundamental flaw in psychiatry, psychology. It's a fundamental problem. It doesn't recognize mental health. So all it recognizes is mental illness. It just sees problems. It sees ill people. And they're trying to help people get better. How can somebody who doesn't even know what mental health actually looks like help people find it? It's the blind leading the blind. Everybody is mentally healthy. We get lost in thought. This thought stuff creates every single behavior, every single feeling that we live in. It creates the way the world looks to us. It's all thought. This will change once it gets into psychiatry. It will absolutely change it. It's already happening. We've got psychiatrists in this country now who are right. The old ways, sorry people, we've been lost. We bought into the Freud, the idea that the past is creating who we are now. Not that the past doesn't exist. The past is a thought. We can only know the past out because of thought, memory. The future doesn't exist. That too is a thought. It's our imagination of what we think it's going to look like. It's all thought. And Sydney Banks was constantly saying, bring people back to now. Because right now is all that there actually is. And that doesn't go anywhere. The past can't hurt somebody. They have to think it about the past to create the illusion of it hurting them right now. To create the feelings. The mind's a beautiful thing. I remember when I went to some regressive therapy, they took me back, and I remember being 3 years old and Gran coming over to the back door, knocking on the door. I'd forgotten all about this. My mind was so kind. And she said, there's something wrong with Robin. And I remember panicking, running across the yard into Grandma and Granddad's house. I could smell it. I was 33 years old. I could smell it. I could see the orange coming through the curtains. And I remember I ran in, ran into the house, and I saw Grandad in the middle of the bed, flat dead, mouth wide open. And I remember standing there panicking. And in my mind, I relived this whole experience. The mind is an absolutely phenomenal thing. I'd forgotten all about it till I went into this regressive therapy. And the therapist said to me, great, now we found something, come back next week and we'll explore that deeper. I learned two things from that experience. One, the mind is an absolutely amazing capacity that we just do not understand yet. And two, that the system is looking in the wrong direction for mental health. It wants to study pain to try and find peace and happiness. Whatever our consciousness falls on, we experience. If we're constantly thinking negative, constantly thinking we're affected by the past, well, of course, that's what we're going to experience, because thought creates reality. It's logic.
Energy flows and attention.
Absolutely. Where consciousness goes, experience flows.
It's like I said to you last week when I said about that text. I was with a customer and the text went off in my pocket, and I know I'd been in a bad mood, and I spoke to someone and I thought this text was about that. And I could feel myself getting annoyed. I could feel my heart racing. I could feel everything physically getting really. And I was with the customer. I wasn't even listening to the customer because I was in this thing about this guy sent me a text and getting annoyed about it. So obviously I didn't get the job. I got back in the car looked at my text, happy birthday, off my son. And that's when I got it, because I thought, oh my God, I've just gone through all that and got all these feelings. And I just imagined it all. And it was like massive for me.
Yeah. We'll learn. You see, this doesn't always make sense in this room. But when we go out into our lives, we start to recognize, because all we're proposing is this is what's happened. We don't want people to believe us. We don't want people to anything like that. We just want people to consider that this is a fact. It's a beautiful thing. I found, in my own words, I found God through this understanding. It is the most, it can sound like a really psychological thing, but what we're talking about is something so much greater than our ego can possibly comprehend. We're talking about a spiritual essence that each and every single one of us is to create a reality, to create life, to create feelings. It's so much greater than the ego that thinks it controls it all and needs to control life. That notion that we need to control it all creates so much pain and suffering. Understanding it is key. Come back to that love and understanding. Understanding is key. We don't always get to have the beautiful thoughts. They come into our mind like that so quickly, and it happens for everybody. But the moment they've happened, they're immediately in the past. Why would you change it? Why would you fight that? Why would you go to war with a thought that's already in the past? There's so much acceptance born from understanding that it's all thought, it's all the same thing. Now, this illusion of life is going to bring us happiness and joy and sorrow and grief and all these flavors of life. It's always, always, always working fine. Nobody's broken. Just because we feel like shit does not mean we are broken people. We are simply experiencing the power of thought, creating an expression of feeling within ourselves. Our problems come when we associate that feeling with an object, a person, or a situation, and negate the power of thought, because we don't see it.
It's a nice thing as well. You don't only see it from yourself, you see it in other people. I think there's been people in my life that, because of their behaviour or how they act, I used to see them as broken, or there's something wrong with them. And it's like amazing that through this you start to see whole human beings getting lost in thought rather than broken individuals or damaged people. And I think that sometimes you see it in other people first and then you realise it feels for yourself. Sometimes you see it in yourself first and then you realise it for other people. But to know that whatever anyone presents with, because we work with people from all walks of life, and it's nice to have the confidence to know that you can talk to anyone with any story, anything that could have happened in their life. And you know that this message can still be helpful for them to move forward in a different way. We can't change the past, but actually through thought, the past can look different. So in a way we can. So it's almost like you see the wholeness in yourself, you see the wholeness in other people, you get less lost in other people's stories and dramas and kind of, because it's so easy to do. And I've said there's been times with you where I'm like, oh my goodness, maybe you should go and work at Asda, because you don't know how to use computers. So I'm going to go and work at Asda. I can't do this computer
I won't
stuff.
work at Asda. I've got too much thinking about Asda. I've got too much ego around.
Okay, but it's almost like you don't get so lost in other people's dramas and stories, and you can respect and you can have empathy and you can have love and you can be there for people, but you don't get lost in it in the same way, because you know that what we're pointing to is unbreakable, untouchable, and that whatever is on top of that is going to be a creation, a story, and that can change, as our stories have changed throughout our lives over so many things. So there's just certain bits that we're like, no, that bit is really me. That bit's got more solid, more
I
shape,
need to hold
more
on to
form.
that because that keeps me safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that, I think the greatest gift you can ever show anybody who is suffering is seeing that they're actually whole. They're not broken. And the moment we start to see them as whole, that was the thing that Sue saw in me. She didn't see me as broken. She saw me as whole. The first person who ever talked common sense to me. It was like, you're talking so much common sense. It took me 9 weeks to see this. She talked common sense to me for 9 weeks, and I fell into a state of kind of seeing it. And I fell out of it for 8 weeks, but Sue persevered with me. And then on the 9th week, I realized, I insightfully had an epiphany that this is absolutely fact and there is nothing outside of it. And then I was free. I'd always been free. The only thing that had kept me prison was my own mind, thoughts. Everybody's free. We just don't know it. Jen and I were based in Staveley, and we do group work, we do one-to-ones, we do mentorship, we do intensives for people. We work with people, we'll work with absolutely anybody. We work with mental health diagnosis, addictions, people who just want to gain more understanding, to start to see deeper. We work with all forms of people. Our website is www.freedomthinking.co.uk, and on there we put up videos like the ones we filmed today, and this has been recorded, and they go up online, and they're like a resource for people to look back through if they're interested. Some of them are on different topics. Ed spoke a couple of weeks ago about addiction, because Ed came to us a few weeks ago with an addiction problem, a few months ago with cocaine, and you realise that the addiction, well, you can explain it.
It's just a lot of rubbish, wasn't it, really? Just tortured myself for years, and there's no need to, really. And even since then, I was sort of, since sobering up, since moving here and everything, I felt I had to completely avoid everything. Otherwise, I've let myself down, I've let everyone down and everything. But then I went for a meal last night for my nan's birthday, and I had a beer with my meal. Bad head, but I don't have to be a certain way to, I'm not an addict. I'm not recovering from anything. I'm not in a journey of, rehabilitation. I can take it or leave it. It doesn't have any power over me. It's not it's only how I view it. Whereas last year, if I'd have had a few beers in my meal, afterwards I'd be going out and getting a gram, or I'd probably turn up to the meal with a gram and not eat a great deal.
But the only thing we pointed you towards was your own mind, wasn't it?
Yeah. So it was my own mind. Yeah, sorry, can't explain it. Yeah, it was all just my own mind. I realised it when I was in the van at work, and I looked at a lighter. I thought, oh, a fag now. But I didn't want a fag just before I looked at the lighter. It was all just a thought. I looked at that, boom, thought, fag. Same for cocaine, same for painkillers, same for whatever. At the time. When I'm sat at home with my kids, where's the addiction then? When I'm at work, where's the addiction then? Right now, where's the addiction? Nowhere. It was all just in my head the whole time. Telling myself I was this person. I'd been that person for so many years. People saw me as that person. Never was. Yeah. You just start to realise it. How yeah, sorry, I don't
No, that's beautiful. Thanks, man. Thanks, Ed. Well, like we say, we'll work with all kinds of people. So if anybody is interested in any of the services that Freedom Thinking offer, please just get in touch.
Tell them about Dickon.
Oh, yeah. We also have an international facilitator called Dickon Bettinger. He's coming over to the UK in May, and he's going to be doing a 3-day event with Jenny and myself. This is in Kendal. There's not much going on with 3 Principles in the Northwest, so we're just trying to get shit moving. It's a 3-day event. It's $295 for the 3 days. It'll be a great 3 days. Dickon's a beautiful man. Anybody who's some nodding heads who've come across him, and he's a really, truly beautiful man. He learned from Sydney Banks, the man who realised the 3 Principles and then shared it with the world. So if anybody's interested in that, again, it's on freedomthinking.co.uk. I think it is. The only other thing I could ask is, please can people put £5 in the box? Because sometimes we're left at the end of the night and there's not enough money to cover the room. So that would be great if people could do that. Everybody online, thanks so much for joining us. Do you want to say goodbye to everyone? 1 second.
I'm going to unmute everyone. So
Unmute.
Sorry if you.
Yay, thank you. Bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye. Lovely to see you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, Dave and Jen.
Thank you, love. Thanks for what you said.
Oh, you're welcome.
You're a
Big
star.
laugh.
Loads of love.
Same to you.
Thank you so much
Thanks
for
for
joining
joining.
us, Sandy.
Oh, it was gorgeous. It was lovely. Everything, I could relate to it all, and it was just fabulous. Thank you.
Oh, God bless you, love. Thank you so much.
See you next month.
Hey?
See you next month.
Oh,
The
super.
next one.
You're right. I need to mention that. Well done.
Ah.
The next community group will be the 4th of April, because we're away for a couple of weeks now. Thank you, mate. Thank you, Sandy, love.
Oh, wow, wow. I found it so moving at times and inspiring, and
Oh, God bless you.
music to my ears.
Oh, that's...
Sandy came. It was about 6 or 7 weeks ago.
It's easy. You can't know you can't. When you explain it, you just
Sandy?
point to something.
Yeah.
You came across this 6 or 7 weeks ago.
We're just using words to point to something. You can't.
You just came across this.
About that, sorry, I can't. I did.
Brilliant.
A friend told me about it.
Look at you.
And God, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
I hope one day we get to meet you.
Well,
Oh, yes.